Hey there, viewers. My name is Torinski, and welcome back to another Sunday stream. Today we're going to be playing something a little bit different and trying out an old classic favorite of mine, a little game called Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. And so, yeah, for anyone who has played this game before and knows what they're getting into here, I can give a little bit of an intro in that I played kind of on and off for a long period of time now, since like 2008, 2009, somewhere around that point. But I recently got back into the game a year or two ago and played a bit more consistently. And since then, because I think in all my early days and over the years, I got one victory in just the 3 rune, and then more recently gotten a bit better handle on it in this most recent comeback, and now I've gone a decent number of 5 rune wins under my belt. I usually like to go for all 5 of the basic runes, but for anyone who hasn't played the game before, it's an old school rogue like, kind of in a similar vein to games like ADOM or Caves of Qud. I don't know, I guess if most people, if they've heard of those, they've probably also heard of this game because it runs in a lot of the same circles. But it's a dungeon crawling RPG where we're traveling down through dungeon. We're trying to retrieve the Orb of Zot and bring it back to the surface. In order to do so, we must gather at least 3 up to 15 ruins from different areas throughout the dungeon that kind of scale in difficulty level and requirements in order to successfully get through alive. But you start off, yeah, on this screen here. You can kind of ignore for now a lot of these old saves that I've going. I have a bad problem with wanting to start new characters all the time. But with, I guess, the easiest way to explain most of this game is just to hop straight into it. So let's do it. First, we get to choose our species here. And so, whole lot of options. When I was younger, I used to play fully just for flavor and pick whatever I was liking most at the time. And these have changed over the years as well. Races have been added or gotten rid of. But today we're going to start off fairly simply, since this is kind of our introductory run to the series, streaming it here. So a beginner combination that a lot of people stick to a lot in the early game is going with a Minotaur for the species. They're pretty tough, have a lot of health, and have pretty good skill aptitudes, which we'll definitely get into in just a moment here. But so we'll pick that, and then yeah, one of these fighting classes is usually the most straightforward for beginners. Pardon me. And again, when I first started, I played a lot of berserkers. They have a nice panic button ability that you can kind of use in a sticky situation, and when you're just starting, you will die using that ability a lot, but it feels fun doing it. Today we're gonna go very basic and just go with fighter. The kind of fun thing about this game is this isn't a class we're choosing really, it is just a background. So it gives us our starting equipment and some of our initial skills that we have, but otherwise we just get to roll with whatever we can find in the dungeon and see what comes at us. So we'll hop into that. And here is a little sneak peek at the aptitude stuff I was mentioning. Because each species has different ability to learn the skills for different weapon types, different types of magic, just general like fighting, which increases your health, and some other things, general spellcasting, mana, and other things, and a few other skills that we'll get into as we go through here, but we'll probably want to go for one of the higher aptitudes. Unless you're going for a specific flavor or you're playing a race that doesn't have a good aptitude in one of the good weapon types. But fortunately, Minotaur fighter meant to be, so we'll probably go with, it's going to be a pretty simple run to start off, so we'll go with an axe, an old classic favorite. And what is our name today? So my recent strategy for naming, I used to be very creative and come up with different names every time, or occasionally if I really liked a name, I'd just go through their generations and have a second and a Oswald the third, Oswald the fourth, and so on. But nowadays, I often just name them after the species background combination. So this is going to be Mifi, and she's going to be one tough son of a gun. Hopefully. Never know what the dungeon is going to hit us with. But here we are, into the main game now. And so, yeah, I'm playing on a Tiles version of the game. All these old roguelikes initially, and by many people still today, were played in the ASCII format, where everything is represented by keyboard symbols, to put it most simply for general audience. But somebody's gone through and made a nice tile set for it, and this is the official one off of the Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup website. There we go. And it does a pretty good job. Pardon me. But we can quickly go over our screen here. Top right, you see most of our personal stats at a glance. Important ones at least. Health. AC is our armor class. Evasion here, shield level or shield goes up with depending on what type of shield you're wearing and how good your skills with that. And then attributes, strength, intelligence, dex. For the most part, fairly intuitive in what they do. If you want to hit stuff a little bit harder, go strength. If you want to cast spells, go intelligence. If you want to be quick on your feet and dodgy, go dex. But a little more complicated than that, of course, on the deeper level. And then we just have our level, how much experience we're at relative to the next level, and then where we are as well. There's noise in the game, and so as we go about, we'll make noise fighting people or casting spells especially is very loud, and it may attract monsters from around us and all that good stuff, as well as the time that we've spent here and our current weapon we're holding and what we have quivered, usually to throw, but mages can also quiver spells now in this latest version here. And then, yeah, not last but not least, because we're not quite at the last year, but we have our little mini map on the side. Not generally all that important, but can occasionally be useful for recognizing where your stairways are and that kind of thing without having to search through the map. And then we have monsters in our sight line. This bar lets you get to a bunch of screens, which most of the ones that I go to I know the hotkeys for by now, so I'll try to mention the hotkeys I'm using, but when you're just starting, it's really nice in the tile set to have all these options. And then finally, yeah, our inventory here and what's on the ground at our feet. And so, yeah, if you're new to these types of games, the main, one of the main mechanics of it is that it's turn-based and everything happens on our turn. So right now, we've just been at pause time, nothing happening, and then as soon as we move, everything around us will react as well and do their movements. But as long as we're standing still, we're totally safe. So in a really bad situation, you have all the time in the world to take a look through your inventory, what your options are, and try and make the best decision for the time. It's a very deeply strategic game with a lot of, I guess, both strategy and tactics kind of on the line. But as we start off a run, what I always like to do is have a bit of a, I totally had a phrase for this when I was thinking about this game earlier. A warm-up? Anyway, a routine. That's the word I was going for. A little routine that we have at the start of every run where we just want to set our character up. So first of all, I hit the M key to open up the skills menu here. We get a bit of a better look at some of the stuff that we are trained in and what we are training in as well. These green ones are cross-trained, so because we're good with axes, similar enough weapons, we're at least okay at, though not quite as good. So it's useful if we want to switch up in the future. As you can see, that doesn't seem like there are that many skills, but if we go to this tab here, so I could hit asterisk, but I can click on this as well. You can see everything list out, but actually, can I hold up? Oh, no. Okay, I thought that they might have changed stuff from back when I first started. Oops, my little laptop died here. Forgot to plug it in. Oh gosh, rough start. But turns out nothing has changed. Okay. For any weapon or skill that we don't currently have the ability to use, we're not able to train in it at the moment. So when we go to useful, it's just listing the ones that are actually relevant to us. We'll start by not worrying too much about the defensive stuff at the beginning here and try and get our attack skill up. Because if we stand here, and I'll quickly, you look, actually, yeah, up in this number here, and I'll swing my axe to the left side of me by holding control and clicking the arrow. So I swing it, nothing down here. So that took me 1.4 turns, quote unquote turns. It's a bit complicated the way they count time. It's in a system called aughts, but essentially I'm pretty slow, so it takes me a bit longer than it does to just move a space, just to swing my weapon. So hopefully by increasing that attack skill up, or that weapon skill up fast enough here, we'll be swinging a bit quicker and not have to worry about monsters hitting us twice while we're getting one in. But the second thing we want to do at the startup is I hit my backslash key to open up all the recognized items here. And this way we can toggle what we want to pick up automatically as we explore the dungeon versus what we will have to manually walk over to and click. So I want to pick up all magical staves because I'd rather pick them up and drop them than not realize they're there. And then we'll also click on all these throwable things. Maybe even stones for now, even though I might get rid of that right away if we pick up too many. Because we definitely will want to get into throwing stuff so we have some ranged capability, unless we get lucky with other weapon types. And then last but not least, we'll just take all of these on. These are all evocable items that we carry around in our inventory, and then we can use to special effect, and they will recharge slowly over time, or in some cases, they disappear at a % chance with every use. But with that, I think we're ready to jump in here. And so we can hit the O key instead of running around manually with the arrow keys or the numpad keys. We hit the O key on a keyboard, auto explore kicks in and will take us around until we see a monster or pick up an item, a new item I should say, or see an item. But okay, so first combat here is we quickly went through the dungeon with the auto explore. So in this game, early on, it can be really tempting to just charge in headlong and try and defeat all these weak little minions here, but it's good practice oftentimes to just run backwards a bit this moment you get seen. And then I can hit the S key a few times until they show up to me. The S key just waits a turn in the current location. But this way, they come to us, we're not making noise out in unexplored territory, we won't get, cut off from our retreat path that we know is relatively safe at the very least. And so, now we can start fighting. So in combat, we can either use the arrow keys to just knock ourselves into them and things automatically are resolved in the meantime, or by hitting the tab key, it's the auto fight feature. As long as we're still at high health, it will keep attacking the closest enemy. I think it might prioritize based on hit dice, which is a really basic strength measure. But we managed to kill both of them just fine. And then if we were optimizing fully and trying to play really safely, we could wait here for a while until anything that heard us fighting or heard the noise will come this way to explore, or to investigate rather. But we're a pretty strong start here with a Minotaur fighter, so for the most part we can just run around. And in fact, I won't even retreat here, and I'll just wait and let them come to me. Instead, bats are a pain in the butt because they get a bunch of moves per single one of ours, and so they can really fly around like menaces. But there we have it. I'm still very much trying to get used to changes that have happened in the game. Because, yeah, this game, I think, started in 1997 by a man named Lindley. And then it got taken, or it got dropped after a few years, and then a group of developers picked it up because it was an open source project. And that's the modern stone soup we know today, but it's gone through a lot of iterations, a lot of changes over the years. And I just, for streaming here, updated to the more recent version. I was playing one version behind on my own beforehand, but I'm used to having to pick up food and butcher all the bodies we come across for meat to eat on our way down, but that is a thing of the past now. So here's an example of why we don't want to charge in. I saw this dart slug pop into my view here, and then I absentmindedly hit the tab key and started walking towards the slug, and it got in a pretty nasty shot on us. And as we walk forward, it'll keep getting shots as well. So against these early ranged things, or most ranged things in the game, we want to duck around a corner and wait out here for it to come to us, and then we're in combat range. I expected it to actually come on the right side there, and we'd have to take one step at least, but sometimes works out in our favor. So again, we have a little slug buddy. That time I hit the 5 key to just wait. I think it's 100 turns or until something happens. Our health maxes out, monster shows up, and kind of those things. Nice time saver. In a corridor like this, I will charge at a rat, because again, we're playing a pretty tough race, so I don't have to be as cautious as I'm used to being, as someone who likes to play spellcasters for the most part. That's the very basic loop of the game here. And as we go through, yeah, we'll find loot on monsters, we'll find loot on the ground as well. Like, in fact, this, oops. Let this beastie come to us. Nothing there. This chainmail here, as long as it's not enchanted in some negative way, is a tougher base armor rating 8 than the scale mail we're wearing right now. It has a higher encumbrance rating because it's heavier armor, but we have really high strength, and we're not casting spells, so we don't have to worry too much about that. So we'll probably just slap this bad boy on, get a little bit stronger here, and then continue on. Changing your equipment takes different amounts of time depending on what equipment you're doing. Something like armor takes quite a few turns, so that's not something you're going to be doing in combat at all. Okay, just a couple throwing rocks I will walk towards. But okay, we've hit level 3 now as we've made our way through the dungeon. At level 2, we didn't get any real advantage. You just get slightly more health and magic points. I want to call it mana, but then I looked up and I saw that it's not called mana. I might always end up referring it to that because that's definitely the term I'm more used to. But importantly, at every third level and every multiple of 3 thereafter, we get to increase one of our attribute points, the strength, intelligence, or dex. So this is where we get to put in a decent chunk of damage, get better at spell casting, get a little bit more nimble here. For this basic run, I'm probably just going to be pumping into strength and try and get our damage high enough that we don't have to worry too much about how much damage we're taking. But we'll continue on through the dungeon here. Let this buddy come to us. Ooh, back up. The other nice thing about backing up here is that they would have both been attacking us at the same time, but we get a nice corridor here and no problem whatsoever to deal with these buddies one by one. We can take a quick peek at our skills to see how it's progressing here. I accidentally turned on dodging, or I got it since last one. No, that doesn't make sense. Something funky happened and I accidentally trained some dodging. Not too bad for a start like this. Some races, if you have really bad aptitudes, you're really squeezing every bit of experience you get for every last drop trying to fill out certain skills, but we can be pretty lax for the most part here. But axes are slowly coming up and our fighting is increasing a little bit. I guess I should have mentioned that I hit the axes skill once here, C, to change it to a starred, which means it gets slightly more experience than our other activated skills here. Oh wait, these are training. Oh, I made a horrible mistake. There we go. So yeah, I was wondering if playing on stream would make me more or less cautious. I forgot that it might make me forgetful for some of the most basic things that I've always done. But so we've just trained this on to manual mode instead of automatic. That was our main problem there. So we've kind of been splitting experience willy-nilly. Instead, we can, yeah, turn off all of the unnecessary ones and focus on axes like we meant to from the start. Hopefully I don't make too many rookie mistakes like that in the future. But I guess kind of back to the other note that I was making, I am very curious if playing on stream will actually make me slow down the appropriate amount in my attempts to not be embarrassed and die in a stupid way, or if I'm going to be rushing through to try and be entertaining to keep the pace up and find myself in a horrible situation. Guess we won't know until it happens, so hopefully we just have a pretty straightforward run. Nice power scaling here. But it's been, yeah, a simple starting floor to our dungeon so far. Nothing too exciting or scary, which is what you usually want in your first level at the very least. As soon as you get down to second level of the dungeon, who knows what might pop out at us here. Now, still the usual rabble of enemies, and here we go, a new foe shows up. So gnolls, not too bad an opponent on their own, especially not as a tough race or species and background like ourselves, but they do travel in packs. And they're the other ones. So, oh, and a snake stuck in there. Snakes are also dangerous because they can poison us. And at this point, we don't really have anything we can do about that here. Yeah, we lost a decent chunk of health to that snake. We'll still lose a little bit of health to the poison here, but nothing we can't handle. We also leveled up. I forget which level numbers you get it, but I think it might depend on the species even. But you do get random attribute upgrades occasionally as well, when we got a dexterity there with the you feel agile. But we'll still tap through all this and manage to get through a little rough around the edges, or rougher for wear, but not too shabby here. And yeah, so quickly upon pressing the O key, we quickly waited out enough turns to heal up level our health there, and then explored the pile. And here we go. This is an interesting early enemy a lot of the time. These worms are very slow, but they hit pretty hard. So we might let it close, get a couple hits in. Okay, that went all right. At this point, if we find those things a little bit earlier, they can be pretty scary and kill us in just a few hits. But we can always run away, which would have been a good lesson for us to showcase there, because that is a very important part of this game. In a lot of situations, you can run away. It's not worth losing your life. Oh geez, okay, so this is starting to look a little rough. A gnoll with a halberd here, unfortunately, with its longer weapon, is able to reach past the enemy in front of us and also get hits in while we're fighting here. So we, I think, could kill this little quokka quickly enough that it wouldn't be too much of a problem to get to this buddy. But then we'll have this gnoll hitting us as well while this gnoll attacks. Still feeling pretty cocky, and we're playing a tough species here, so I do think we can fight this one out. But maybe not. That was one hit from the halberd here. So what I should have done here, if we were trying to play perfectly and survive every single encounter, anytime an enemy shows up, you can examine them. So on the tiles here, I can use my mouse and right click on them. But you can also at any time press Shift X to go to this navigation mode and look around the map as much as you'd like. And then going over them and pressing V lets us check them out. So this buddy hits for 9 damage plus its halberd. Can't remember off the top of my head what the base damage of a halberd is, but that probably was like a 16, 17, something like that. So an 8 or 9, 7 or 8. Forget which numbers I said now. Oh gosh, quick math. But definitely hits a little harder than I was expecting. Might be a little bit scary, especially since this buddy is going to be doing about the same here. Looks like it. Also, yeah, lets you know they're about what their health should be. There's a bit of randomization there, and how good their accuracy or their armor class and evasion is as well. So, this is where we can take advantage of the turn-based aspect and just sit back and think about things for a moment. We unfortunately don't have a lot of resources this early in the game, a bunch of potions and scrolls that we haven't identified. So we have no idea what they do. We know the colors of the potions, and the scrolls are all just gibberish to us. So as we pick up more of these, we can test them out in a safe, controlled environment. If we get really panicked, which we could be now, potentially, we could always try and drink one of our potions here. Maybe drink the one that we've picked up 2 of, hoping that it's one of the more common curing potions. We also have an unidentified ring, which, no idea what it will do. Probably not worth putting on in combat here. Might give us a decent advantage, like armor class or something like strength, but probably would want to just try and run away and put it on in safety if we wanted to go that route. And that's pretty much it this early on. So nice and simple. Maybe we will. Oftentimes, especially if I'm just playing on my own, this early in a run, I'm not too... Jeez, I'm just blanking on all the most basic words today. What is... Oh my gosh. When you're in a relationship, or when people have issues with commitment, that's the word I was looking for. A bunch of random trains of thoughts shooting out did get me there eventually, but yeah, we're not too committed to the character yet. We don't care too much about the time we've put in, so oftentimes I would just charge into this pack willy-nilly and see what happened, because we might make it through. It's a game of random rolls and could get lucky. But let's try our best to make this first example run survive as long as we can. So we'll take this as an opportunity to start running away. There's a little bit of RNG involved in moving, where occasionally enemies get an extra little bit of energy. They can also lose a little bit of energy and lose a step on you. So we might get hit once, but if we do, it shouldn't happen again for a while. So it should be all good there. I'm trying to take just the shortest path here, right back to the stairs. Fortunately, for fighting a monster with a reaching weapon, they're not going to stand right next to you. So if you can get to the stairs, they won't follow you up unless they're standing adjacent to you, or monsters won't. So we can safely get here and just pop our way on up and heal as well. So we could go back down here, try and fight our way through. We could even try and bring up 1 or 2 of them with us and fight them in a bit safer of a place up here. But that's kind of scary, especially since as we step down, they'll get a whole bunch of free hits in. So instead, we can hit Shift X and then the right arrow, so like Shift period, to find other downstairs around us. These trapdoors are one-way exit, so a little bit risky to go through at this point. But we'll head to the other solid staircase here and see where this brings us. Down on the other side of the map here, so we're safe from that pack. We could explore here and just try and gain some more experience before we fight them again, which is probably what we'll do. We'll even pick up some stuff most likely, and even if we see them, we may want to go for the fight again this time. Just be a bit more cautious, and if we get them at range, we can try and throw a few stones in there. Okay, should be playing a bit more carefully here, letting monsters come to me. I always get lazy, especially, yeah, playing fighter classes. I was going to mention that I feel pretty comfortable and competent with most of the spellcasting classes nowadays, but I'm actually surprisingly bad with most of these sword and board brute combinations. You know, they're supposed to be easier for sure, and most people do start out when they're beginners. They start out with these races because it can be really hard to keep a spellcaster alive in the early game, especially. But for the first time on our run here, we've come across an altar. So there is a pantheon of gods in the game, and each god or goddess will give you, or each deity I should say, will give you a different set of benefits, and you'll also increase your piety to them and how close you are over time as you continue to do things that they appreciate and they like. So this is a pretty early one to see here on Dungeon 2, or Dungeon Level 2 I could say. And this is a shrine to Hepliac Liquania. I've never had to say this word out loud. Didn't think that through when I started streaming this today. But we can kneel at the altar here and see what they have. So Hepliac Liquana, the Forgotten, accepts the worship of those who would remember their forebears and fight alongside the greatest of them all. Acolytes of Hep sacrifice a small part of their life essence to manifest their ancestor into the world. As they explore and form new experiences, they will find themselves able to shape and control their ancestors' memory, eventually bringing them into the ranks of the mythical heroes. So here we can see the granted powers, and we'll go down the list getting that one and all previous ones as we increase how close we are to our chosen deity. So, I could try Het. It's definitely really nice to get an altar this early. They've been out for a few versions now, but I've actually never worshipped them. So I've heard they're very strong, but it essentially gives you a little allied ghost that will constantly be around to fight with you, and they'll get stronger as you go. Really strong if you yourself have a reaching polearm, much like those gnolls we were talking about earlier, because you can have your ghost between you and enemies and then just poke around them. Could be interesting, and maybe we'll think about this one. Once we've joined a religion, we can always leave if we'd like to, or if we want to switch to someone else. But unfortunately, the deities do not like that sort of thing, and so they do punish you for such actions. And depending on which religion you follow, you can have wraths that aren't too bad, or some that are outright game or run enders, no matter what you do. So we'll keep exploring for now, see if we find any other altars. There's a Zom altar through the glass there with just a downstairs leading up to it, so nothing we can do about that yet. Here we go, our Gnoll buddies. So let's, take one with us. This way we can play a little bit safer. Unfortunately, it does leave us with both the halberd buddies, but there we go, we just got one of them. So this friend has a halberd of protection, so they have a bit of a higher armor class than we're used to. Might take a bit longer to kill, but hopefully we don't lose too much health here. That's a lot more health than I'd like. We might die in one hit if we're really unlucky. But unfortunately, I fully committed to this fight, because if I try and take a step away, the Gnoll gets one free hit in anyway. So we could keep going toe to toe here, hope for the best. Could chug a random potion. We could also use a wand of random effects that we picked up and hope that the random effect works in our favor. Never know if that's going to be the case. And that's most of our options. Some of these scrolls could be helpful to us, but a lot of them won't do much, unfortunately. And so, how safe do I want to play this? Should I try and drink a potion? Could also just hasten our death here. My heart tells me to just keep slugging away and that we will come out of this on top, but it's always a little bit risky. I think we'll go for another hit or two, see if we do get less health. I don't actually, on second thought, think that we are in single hit territory here, because fortunately we do also have decent armor on, which I always kind of forget to account for. So we can see what happens until we take just a bit more damage and then start to really panic. It's not like we can run here. There we go, killed in one hit, and all the stress and worry was over nothing. But you never know in this game, and oftentimes that moment to just calm down, take a look through your inventory, double check everything you can drink, everything you can read, all that good stuff. We'll keep you alive in the dungeon. But we do find ourselves with a halberd, which begs the question, should we switch to pole arms and worship our buddy Hep here? We do now have the ability to attack around the ghost of our ancestor. We'll lose a bit of max health by worshiping them, but that shouldn't be too bad for us since we're a pretty high health species already. We're not missing it too much. I don't even know what my thoughts are on this or what I want to do. Mostly because I've never worshipped Hep before. I'm an old dog. I go for all the classics that I've known my whole life. But let's try it out. And so we will enter or pray here, and Hep welcomes us. So forms a fragment of our life essence into the memory of your ancestor, Aethrith. Cool. Now recall our ancestor, and we can remember their identity. Aethrith. Cool. So, about slightly less than half the health of us, immune to poison, negative energy, resistant to fire and cold. That seems pretty good. Sees invisible. Very solid. Can fly. And is intelligent. Don't think will be super important for us here. Also regenerates quickly and 6 damage. Well, she's a bit weak at the moment, but pretty sure she'll be turning into a badass at some point. So, without further ado, let's go back to exploring. Oh, that wasn't the end of the null pack there. But our ancestors heading in for the kill. Ooh, they're having issues. Let's jump in as well. So, I forgot to switch in advance to the halberd here, but I think we will. Oh, can't use that with a shield. Oh, I'm a fool. Right. So, instead, let's think with our feet here, or think on our feet. And we'll just take a turn to step in next to our ally here, and then both of us can hit this one null at the same time, and we should be able to take it down very quickly. One turn, in fact. But unfortunately, it does look like Aethrith was destroyed. Did both of them hit, or just one? I guess, yeah, she was already low health, unfortunately. But I do believe she comes back. I guess we'll have to see. Don't have first-hand experience, but we should be able to beat one null with the flail, even though definitely did a number on us there. And then we can wait around. Oh, there we go. Aethrith is back, emerges from the mists of memory. That's nice. Let's take a break, take a drink here. Okay. So before we move on, it's time to make some decisions. In fact, though, we will maybe head back to the stairway and head up so that we are in an area that we know is totally safe here. So, we could take off our shield and start using this halberd here for the moment. It does give us some extra armor class, quite a bit actually. 7 is a pretty huge deal when you see that our total is 9 right now and we're using pretty heavy armor as well. Only when we strike enemies, but that's still going to help us out most of the time here. So unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but usually I really like to use shields in this game. It's nice to get any defensive bonus you're able to, but this early in the game, I think we can afford to switch over to using our halberd buddy here. The other decision we have to make is with our skills, because we could, if we wanted, keep training axes. We still have an axe in our inventory, so it's still trainable, and it'll slowly bring up polearms as well at the same time, so it's not like it's totally wasted even if we do go this route in the future. But I probably will only want to use polearms as the run goes on if we get a decent spear or trident or any of the other one-handed polearms, and that way we can also throw a shield on there. So for now we'll going back and forth even in my own head, especially since we're with Hep, and I feel like Hep we do want to use polearms almost no matter what, so we can always hide behind our ghost a little bit. So let's try switching out which weapon we're training here. don't attack my ally. I was just trying to swing to test how quickly our attack speed was, down to 1.3 with this buddy. But okay, let's try out this new combination. If it really doesn't go well, we can always switch back to our old weapon and shield, no problem. As long as we survive, I guess. But with careful play, we usually can. Okay, so Scorpion is a bit tougher of an enemy here. Want our, yeah, Ancestor come back with us. And then we probably will let the Scorpion close. It's, yeah, a little risky because it's also quite fast here. If we go over to it, I guess. Has decent health, decent evade as well. And then has poisonous sting here. Yeah, cause poisoning if any damage is dealt. Up to 10 damage as well, just on the hit itself. Fortunately, it doesn't seem like it's faster than us, which is what I actually thought it might be and was concerned about. So on second thought, we can at least let it close to here and fight with us. And then if our ancestor gets taken out, we can retreat for a bit and see if we can't figure things out. So pressing tab here, we reach past our ghost and attack the Scorpion. We can also hit the V key to evoke our weapon and evoke the spear to hit it. There we go. So yeah, we hit it there, and so did so did Aelfrith. Like I told you, she's a badass. But okay, here we go. This is one of the tough early enemies we can run into, and especially, yeah, Dungeon 3, I think it's quite early to find a centaur. But fortunately, we also found the centaur right around a corner. They're usually most dangerous because they'll rapid fire arrows at you from afar, and they're much faster than you as well, so they'll chase you down even if you try and run. Fortunately, we should be able to take this one at close range. We'll start here by switching with our ancestor, and then we'll reach around the centaur. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have switched with our ancestor. I didn't realize that'd make the centaur go to ranged mode. We're going back in. And instead, this time, we're moving over to allow both of us to hit the centaur. We want to stay in close range here and keep the centaur using just their fists. And there we have it. Now we can just tab through the rest of that fight. We could think about taking this bow as well. Yeah, we'll keep pumping up strength as we go here. But we'll pick up this bow here, because right now we're not using a shield anyway. So we may want to switch between our weapons to just pepper in some free shots from range on the really tough enemies at the very least. So what we can do here is I can right click on my halberd and we can go to this adjust option with the equals key. Oops, that was not the equals. There we go. And we'll adjust that one to the letter A. And we'll go to our short bow as well, and we can adjust that to letter B. And now if we press the apostrophe key, we'll switch between those two on demand. So there we have it. If we desire, we can now try and pepper in shots as enemies close. But go into our usual routine here. We'll switch place with our ancestor, let them take the brute force here, and we'll just try and punch around them. I was hoping my ancestor would step back with me, but I forgot. They're kind of aggressive once they're fighting. With the T key, we are able to shout orders to our allies and make them do things, which we may have to get a little more comfortable with now that we're controlling someone. I'm used to only ever doing that if I play as a hill orc priest that's trying to convert all the other orcs in the dungeon. Yeah, we'll play it safe here, let monsters close with us. Keep going around this buddy. We'll just let close with us. We won't worry about switching places with our ancestor against the fodder at this point. We'll let this kobold throw some stones. Shouldn't be a problem here. And there we go. Not a worry whatsoever. Check my phone here real quick. Oh, I should definitely reply to this. Partner's asking if I fed the dog, and I definitely did. Perfect. Making bad decisions, closing in on an enemy, but feeling a bit cocky here. This one will maybe like close with us and try and practice what we preach here. Okay, and here we go. So these are always interesting. You can find these ruined doorways that we can choose to leave or open. Very dangerous most of the time. All these kobolds actually probably aren't too bad, but ghosts are where things get extremely dangerous. Yeah, Null Wanderer, so we have no idea what skills they'd have with the Wanderer background. That's one that just completely randomizes your starting gear and skills. And pretty tough as well. So we'll ignore that, and luckily the Auto Explorer will just ignore that by default on its own. Just chase down that bat real quick. Then our first orc. You know, let's switch with our ancestor. Play it a little bit safer. Not worry about floor 1 enemies, and instead just kind of focus when it's anything new here or anything a bit scarier. But definitely a smooth run so far, even though we have seen a couple of the tougher enemies. There's another altar that we could have chosen if we didn't go for our buddy Hep here. We always want to make sure we have sight on enemies, otherwise our minions won't be able to hit them, because unfortunately our minions only see what we can see. There we are, taking out everything, no problem whatsoever. There we go, we're done exploring this floor, so we can start thinking about the next one here. Double check our skills, just because it's good practice to hop in here every once in a while, make sure nothing wrong is going on. Things are looking okay. Yeah, now that we have a religion, we can start training invocations to make all of the abilities that are linked to that a little bit stronger. In this one, let's see what we're able to do. Recall ancestors. Okay, just brings them right to us. Cool. Don't know how important that will be. Maybe if we ever want to leave them behind somewhere, tell them to a garden area, could be good. And then what is G here? Recalls who your ancestor preferred to be known as, correcting their name and gender. Oh, cool. You can alter it if you'd like. I'm happy to let Elfrith be Elfrith for now. Like the randomly generated name. And Mifi here definitely likes having a pal. But the other things we'll check over before we head down is what other items we may want to try and identify. We have a decent number of scrolls in a couple of stacks here, and a decent number of potions in a couple of stacks as well. We also picked up this shiny ring mail on our journeys that we haven't tried out yet. This one's fairly safe to just try and wear. If it happens to be cursed, maybe kind of rough. But hopefully that's not the case, and if it is, one of these high stack scrolls should be our answer there. I think curses are still in this version. That's something that is definitely gone in the testing beta branch, the trunk version of the game, but can't remember now off the top of my head if this is when the change was added. But let's start trying some stuff on before we head down. It was cursed, the ring mail. Fortunately, it's not negatively enchanted, it just is cursed, so we're unable to take it off, but it's not horrible. It's just worse base armor rating than our original armor. But while we have something cursed, we might as well go all in, because if we get another cursed item, we can hopefully get rid of both the curses in one fell swoop. So we'll try out our ring. Got a ring of resist corrosion, which is definitely useful for later, but only useful against very specific enemies early on. But we'll definitely wear it for now because we have no other rings to wear and it's no downside. So in order to change back to our armor, we will probably read some of these scrolls and see if we can get a remove curse in them. We start off with a scroll of identified. So we get to use this as a pre-identification since we just had to read it to see what it did. So we'll probably use this on a potion because I like to have potions identified because it's often a pretty big waste to down one before you know the effects, and especially in a safe environment like this, we don't want to waste an early health potion when we only have potentially 3. I'm hoping 3. No, okay, we had 3 potions of flight, so unfortunately I do kind of wish we just tested that one out, because we probably won't need quite that many flight potions throughout our journey here, but we'll test out a couple more scrolls as well. Scroll of teleportation will take us somewhere random in the dungeon in a couple turns. It's all good here because everything's safe, but it's a funny one for sure. And there we go, we got the scroll of remove curse. Now we'll wait a couple turns until we get teleported. There we go. Oh, and here's where recall our ancestor will be good, because if we get teleported, we can bring them to us. Okay, there we go. Immediate payoff for showing us exactly how that mechanic can be used at the very least. Let's take a sip. What? Taking a look now. I thought I'd just fix this. Apologies. I'm gonna just do some quick on the fly changes here, because that's how we should look. There we go. Perfect. And let's hop back into it here after we make sure to change back into our heavier armor. We can also start dropping off some of the stuff we've gone over our journey so far, and let's head down, shall we? Ooh, immediately we see white text means we have a very special magical thing here, an artifact. So an artifact will have multiple traits on it, positive or negative, and will also, is not able to be just enchanted in a straightforward way with enchant armor scrolls, but usually is pretty good on its own. So we'll immediately hop back upstairs here and try this on. Get the +3 scale mail of the monk. Rampage. That's a new ego that I haven't seen before. It bestows 1 free step when moving towards enemies. Huh. That seems very interesting. Gonna have to try that out. This is a bit of a scary place for it because it's wide open spaces, but here we go. If I step towards you, doesn't seem like that was free. Maybe I took 2 steps. I might have taken 2 steps. I'll have to test out on the next one. I wasn't paying close enough attention. Come on. Come on, brain. So here we go. If I step towards you. Oh, I do. Okay, I see. So it's not that I get a step that's, I don't know, for some reason I thought I'd take a step and it would cost 0, like, turn movements, but that is very interesting. Well, we'll take out all these orcs on our own. We don't have to worry too much about our ancestor for the rabble there. Here we'll definitely let the snake come up to us. We'll definitely let the scorpion come up to our ancestor. Yeah, scorpion is very scary, but ancestor will be back. Igfrith, where are you? Igfrith. I mean, I can probably fight a gecko, but there we are. There she is.